stop for just one moment right now and close your eyes. And in that brief silence, if you can hear a high-pitched whistle, a low humming, a hissing like steam escaping a radiator, a buzzing like a distant fluorescent light, or a ringing that never stops no matter how quiet the room becomes, then what I am about to tell you over the next 18 minutes could genuinely give you back nights of sleep you had already written off as impossible, because that sound inside your head is not just getting older, it is not nerve damage you'll have to live with, and it is absolutely not something you deserve to have dismissed by another doctor who hands you a pamphlet for a white noise machine and walks out the door. That sound is a biological distress signal, an SOS being transmitted from tiny starving cells deep inside your inner ear that are literally crying out for specific nutrients your body has stopped delivering. And the moment you understand which nutrients they're missing and how to restore them, that ringing can begin to fade, sometimes within weeks. My name is Doctor, and I've spent the larger portion of my career as a medical researcher poring over clinical data on tinnitus and inner ear physiology, and I'm here to tell you what almost no ENT specialist or general practitioner will sit down and explain. Tinnitus is, in the overwhelming majority of cases, a cellular starvation problem, not an ear problem at all, and normal test results on a hearing exam only mean you have been measured against a statistical average of a population that is itself profoundly nutrient deficient. Let me tell you about a man named Roberto, a 62-year-old structural engineer who came to me after 3 years of punishing tinnitus so severe he was sleeping less than 4 hours a night, was considering early retirement because he could no longer concentrate on blueprints, and had been told by 2 specialists that his hearing tests were perfectly normal and that he should learn to accept it. Within 6 weeks of starting the nutritional protocol I'm about to walk you through, the volume of his ringing had dropped by more than half, and by the 4th month, he described the sound as having moved to a different room. And by month 6, he sent me a photograph of himself sitting on a park bench with his adult daughter, and he wrote beneath it the words that still sit on my desk. I can hear her laugh again without the whistle competing. Before we go any further, I want you to do something for me right now. In the comments below, tell me how long you've been hearing this sound. 1 year, 5 years, 20 years. Tell me what type of sound it is. A whistle, a buzz, a hiss, a hum, a ring, and tell me if it's louder on the right ear, the left, or both. I read every one of those comments, and the patterns you describe directly shape the research I bring to this channel. Now let me give you the anatomy and the science in plain English, because once you see what's actually happening, the solution stops sounding like magic. Deep inside your inner ear, in a structure called the cochlea, sits a carpet of microscopic hair cells, about 15,000 of them in each ear, and these cells are fed by a single, absurdly small blood vessel called the labyrinthine artery, so narrow that a single red blood cell can barely squeeze through it in single file, like a frayed high-voltage power line carrying current through a pinhole-sized conduit. When your blood becomes inflammatory, thick, or sluggish, from years of processed food, oxidative stress, chronic low-grade infection, or nutritional deficiency, this already tiny artery begins to constrict. The hair cells downstream begin to suffocate, and instead of dying quietly, they begin firing ghost signals into your brain, signals that your brain cannot filter, cannot locate, cannot silence. A 2025 study out of Newcastle University confirmed what tinnitus researchers have suspected for years, that chronic tinnitus is not an ear disease, but rather a failure of the brain's filtering system, a neural synchrony loop in which the auditory cortex starts amplifying the phantom signals of dying hair cells, and the louder it amplifies, the more real the sound becomes to you. So this isn't imaginary, and it isn't incurable, it's a repairable nutritional and vascular crisis. And that brings us to the 8 foundational pillars that starving auditory nerves are desperate for, and these are the very pillars that rebuilt Roberto's hearing from the inside out. Pillar number 1 is zinc, a trace mineral that functions as the primary antioxidant shield protecting your cochlear hair cells from constant oxidative assault. And the moment zinc runs low, those hair cells are left defenseless against the free radicals that age them prematurely. Here's the catch almost no one discusses: phytates from processed grains, tannins from coffee and tea, and certain calcium supplements can block up to 50% of the zinc you consume from ever reaching your bloodstream. Roberto had been drinking 4 cups of coffee a day and eating whole wheat toast every morning for 30 years. When we removed those zinc blockers around the time of his supplementation with a bioavailable form like zinc picolinate or zinc bisglycinate, typically 15 to 30 milligrams with dinner, the volume of his constant hiss dropped noticeably within the first 14 days. Pillar number 2 is not a nutrient but a warning. Ototoxic drugs. Aspirin in doses above 1,000 milliwalmers per day, ibuprofen and naproxen when taken daily for months at a time, certain water pills, loop diuretics like furosemide, some antibiotics in the gentamicin family, and chemotherapy drugs like cisplatin. These medications directly poison the cochlear hair cells by flooding them with free radicals. If you're taking any of these daily, that is not a reason to stop without medical supervision, but it is absolutely a reason to have an honest conversation with your doctor about safer alternatives, including natural anti-inflammatories like curcumin with black pepper for absorption, boswellia, and omega-3 fatty acids. Pillar number 3 is vitamin B12, specifically the methylcobalamin form, not the cheap synthetic cyanocobalamin form you'll find in most drugstore supplements. B12 is the essential building material for the myelin sheath, the fatty insulation that coats your auditory nerve and keeps the electrical signal from your inner ear to your brain clean and precise. When B12 runs low, the myelin sheath thins, the insulation begins to leak, and the signal begins to buzz. Literally, imagine a copper wire whose plastic coating has worn away, throwing off sparks every time current passes through it. The reframe here is critical. The normal reference range for B12 on a standard blood test is typically 200 to 900 pg/ml, but mounting neurological research suggests that for seniors, and especially for anyone with tinnitus, brain fog, or neuropathy, we should be aiming for a level closer to 800 pg/ml, not just above 200. Normal is looking for not sick. What you want is optimal repair. If you are a senior on a PPI like omeprazole, on metformin for diabetes, or on a vegetarian diet, your B12 is almost certainly depleted regardless of what your last lab said. Pillar number 4 is magnesium, the master relaxation mineral and the single most important nutrient for calming the gain on your internal auditory amplifier. Here's the biology. When you're stressed, inflamed, or sleep-deprived, your brain floods itself with a chemical called glutamate, which acts like pushing the volume knob to maximum on every neural circuit in your body, including your auditory cortex. Magnesium is the brake pedal that pushes back against glutamate, but when magnesium is deficient, which it is in roughly 70% of seniors, the volume knob stays pinned to maximum, and the phantom tinnitus signals get amplified along with everything else. The best forms for tinnitus are magnesium glycinate, 200-400 milligrams before bed, or magnesium threonate, which uniquely crosses into the brain. Food sources include almonds, avocados, raw pumpkin seeds, and dark leafy greens. Before we move on to pillars 5 through 8, I want to pause for just 10 seconds, because if anything I've said so far has described what you're living with, please do 2 things right now. Tap subscribe and hit the notification bell so the next video on cochlear repair reaches you, and share this video with one person in your life who has been told nothing can be done about their ringing ears, because that sentence is a lie and you now know it. Pillar number 5 is vitamin D3. Not merely a vitamin but a neurosteroid hormone that regulates gene expression in the auditory pathway and acts as the repair foreman directing cellular renewal inside the inner ear. A 2026 study in Frontiers in Neurology found that patients with chronic tinnitus had significantly lower serum vitamin D3 levels than matched controls, and supplementation alone produced measurable improvement in a subset of participants. Optimal levels are 50-70 nung/ml, not the bare minimum 30 most labs consider normal. Aim for 15 minutes of direct morning sun on uncovered arms and face whenever possible. Eat wild-caught salmon and pasture-raised eggs. And if you supplement, take 2,000-5,000 IU of vitamin D3 paired with 100 to 200 mcg of vitamin K2, MK7 to direct the calcium it mobilizes into your bones rather than your arteries. Pillar number 6 is something nobody will ever teach you at a doctor's appointment: the circadian timing of your nutrition. Your inner ear, like almost every tissue in your body, runs a nightly repair cycle between roughly 10 p.m. and 2 a.m. And during those 4 hours, your cochlear hair cells actively absorb and use the nutrients circulating in your bloodstream to rebuild themselves. If your last meal of the day is a bowl of cereal, a piece of toast, or a glass of wine, your auditory system has almost no raw materials to work with when repair hour arrives. But if your evening meal is deliberately dense with zinc, magnesium, B12, omega-3s, and vitamin D, you are essentially preloading the repair truck before the night shift begins. This is why I ask my tinnitus patients to make dinner, not breakfast, the most nutrient-dense meal of the day. Pillar number 7 is omega-3 fatty acids, specifically EPA and DHA from wild-caught fatty fish. Omega-3s serve two functions for the auditory system. First, they are incorporated directly into the cell membranes of cochlear hair cells, making those membranes fluid, flexible, and responsive. Rigid, inflamed membranes from a diet heavy in industrial seed oils, soybean, corn, canola, sunflower oil, produce stiff, poorly functioning hair cells that fire erratically. Second, omega-3s reduce blood viscosity. They make your blood less like ketchup and more like water, which allows blood to flow freely through the tiny labyrinthine artery we talked about earlier. For maximum vascular effect, pair omega-3s with natural vasodilators, a small piece of fresh ginger with meals, raw garlic 2 or 3 times a week, and ginkgo biloba extract, 120-240 mg daily in a standardized form. Around month 4 of his protocol, Roberto described his ringing as having moved further away, and that phrase is a clinical tell. It's the sign that blood is finally reaching the starving auditory nerve after years of vascular congestion. Pillar number 8 is direct blood viscosity reduction, a pillar that ties everything together. Inflammatory blood thickens into sludge that cannot squeeze through microcirculation. The combination of omega-3s, curcumin, ginkgo, garlic, ginger, and crucially, adequate hydration, at least 8 cups of plain water daily, turns thick blood back into fluid blood, which opens the path to every starving cell in your body, not just in your ears. Now let me translate all of this into something you can actually put on a plate tonight. I want to give you what I call the auditory rescue dinner, a single, specific, non-negotiable evening meal you can build 3 to 4 times a week that delivers a massive biological payload of exactly what your ears are starving for. The plate consists of a 5-ounce piece of wild-caught baked salmon, delivering vitamin D3, EPA, and DHA simultaneously, served over a large bed of baby spinach tossed with a small handful of raw pumpkin seeds, magnesium plus zinc on the same plate, dressed with extra virgin olive oil, fresh lemon juice, freshly grated ginger, and a crushed clove of raw garlic, polyphenols plus microcirculation boosters, and on the side, half an avocado, which delivers additional magnesium, vitamin E, and healthy monounsaturated fats that carry the fat-soluble vitamins into your bloodstream. One meal, 15 minutes of preparation, and you have handed your auditory system more repair material than most people eat in an entire week. Here is the realistic timeline you should expect if you commit to this protocol. Weeks 1 and 2 are the saturation phase. Your nutrient reserves begin to refill, but you may feel no audible change yet. This is normal, and you must not quit here. Weeks 3 through 6 are when most patients report the first moments of actual silence. A morning when they wake up and notice their ears are quiet for 10 seconds, then 30, then 2 minutes. Roberto's first silent morning came at day 38. Between months 3 and 6, the tinnitus volume typically drops by 40 to 70%. The sound often shifts in character, from sharp whistle to soft hum, and for a lucky subset, it becomes intermittent rather than constant. The absolute rule is this: nerves took years to starve, and they will take weeks to months, not days, to recover. Patience is part of the medicine. A few critical safety notes before I close. If you are on blood thinners, warfarin, apixaban, rivaroxaban, please check with your physician before adding ginkgo, high-dose fish oil, or garlic supplements, because the cumulative blood thinning effect can become too strong. If you have kidney disease, magnesium and vitamin D dosing should be individualized by your doctor, and if your tinnitus is accompanied by sudden hearing loss, vertigo, or one-sided ear fullness, that requires an urgent ENT evaluation because it can signal a treatable condition like sudden sensorineural hearing loss, where the first 72 hours are critical. Roberto is the reason I keep doing this work. The photograph of him laughing with his daughter at the park, with the caption, "I can hear her laugh again without the whistle competing," is pinned above my desk because millions of seniors have been told by well-meaning but uninformed physicians that there is no cure for tinnitus, while the cure, or at the very least, dramatic improvement, sits on their dinner plate and in their supplement drawer every single night. So tonight, I'm asking 3 things of you. First, in the comments below, tell me how long your alarm bell has been ringing and which of the 8 pillars you think you've been missing. Your story will help another senior reading this who feels completely alone with this sound. Second, share this video with one person you love who has been told nothing can be done about their ringing ears, because a simple share might be the single moment that changes the course of their next decade. Third, subscribe to this channel and turn on the notification bell, because we are building a community of seniors who refuse to accept decline as inevitable. And next week, I'm releasing a companion video on the specific vegetable extract shown in clinical trials to relax stiff arteries within 45 minutes. You are not broken, you have not been forgotten, and what you are hearing in your ears tonight is the beginning of a conversation your body has been trying to start with you for years. It is time to finally answer it.